Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in to Daybreak News with the Guyanese Critic. I'm coming to you from the Ministry of Agriculture, and we have with us here today the Minister of Agriculture. The big question today is $22.6 billion has been allocated for the agriculture sector in Guyana as a result of the recently passed budget. And we're going to be asking the Minister what Guyanese can expect from the Ministry of Agriculture and himself. How is that money going to be spent? Minister of Agriculture, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Straight to the point. $22.6 billion. What can Guyanese expect?
So first of all, thank you for inviting me on your program, and this is a very important program where farmers and stakeholders will know what we will be doing in the agriculture sector. Before I start with the $22.6 billion for this year's budget, I would just like to look at last year, what we did at the end of last year. Remember, I was on your program just in August of last year, and I told you what I found when I became the Minister of Agriculture. Now, at the end of last year, with the work that we have done, with emergency budget last year of $18.6 billion, we have almost transformed, so to speak, many areas in the agriculture sector. Not all the areas, but many areas. And at the end of last year, agriculture would have accounted for 27.1% of non-oil GDP, contribution that we have made to the country's economy. And we have contributed 21.3% of non-oil export of the agriculture produced. So at the end of last year, agriculture has played a very pivotal role in our country's development. And this will continue, as you rightly said. We have seen an increase of 23% of last year's budget, 23%. Now we will be spending $22.6 billion this year. And this year we'll see the catalyst, the change from what we have done last year in terms of doing rehab work. We'll do new infrastructures across the country. We'll prepare our country, so to speak, in terms of for large agriculture projects, because as I'm speaking here, there are a number of interested investors coming to Guyana. They want to invest, and at the same time, many persons within our country now, they are now coming forward. We are seeing a renewed interest in the agriculture sector, where people want to come to involve and invest in this important sector. Gone are the days last year when I took over, people were talking about oil and gas all the time, oil and gas. Now you're seeing this kind of renewed interest because of the work and the investment that the PPP civic government would have made. And the President too, His Excellency, he has a passion for agriculture in our country. And I would like to report that our President has taken back that lead role in agriculture in the Caribbean, CARICOM. He has been talking about agriculture. As a matter of fact, he has proposed in CARICOM that a task force be set up to deal with food security, agriculture and food security in the Caribbean, where Guyana will have a chance to chair that task force. So we are taking back our spotlight, so to speak, in agriculture in the Caribbean and wider field. Now, in the agriculture sector, what is in store for the people in our country? I want to begin by saying that in the campaign, in our manifesto, in the campaign that when we went to the election, we said we will reopen the closed sugar estate. To date, we have been expending, we have budgeted $7 billion at the end of last year to spend in the sugar industry. This year's budget, we are cater for another $2 billion that will take us to $9 billion. Now, those operating estates that are presently operating Iflot, Blairmont, and Albion, we are now building back capacity in those estates, because over the last 5 years we have seen the neglect of those estates. Those estates were limping along. There were many parts that needed to be changed that were not changed. They needed new parts. Now we are recapitalizing back, and we are bringing back those estates back to higher capacity, better product. We'll have better production and productivity coming out from those estates. As a matter of fact, I am very happy to report that the second week in this year a crop, we have seen both Blairmont and Albion, they have surpassed their target, and I thought they have made up close to about 95% of their target. So we are seeing back a change coming back because of the work that we have done over time. We are seeing better cane yield now because we are doing back crop husbandry back in the estate, where that these rodent program that we that were there before, these things were neglected by the previous government. Although they took a $30 billion loan, right, a bond, these money were not spent in the estate to rehabilitate critical infrastructure in the estate. So we are moving back there.
And you've started and rehabilitated the estate with $9 billion.
$9 billion so far. But that is not only to do with the operating estates. We are working to reopen the closed sugar estate. Remember, we said we'll reopen the closed sugar estate. To date, we have close to about 1,000 workers who would have whose services were terminated. They are back on the job, both at estates like Enmore, Rose Hall, and Skeldon. Also, what we have been doing, we have been working aggressively to reopen these estates. As I am speaking here today, so
okay, so we'd have to, a situation has arisen and we will have a short break, which if we do not come back right away with you sometime soon with the minister. Good afternoon once again, and sorry for the break-in transmission. Just now the minister had an urgent call, and you know, if you want to be on top of things, you have to deal with them as the issues arise. Not anything that Guyanese should be worrying about, taken out of context. It is just updating the minister's job. So, Minister, let's continue right where we
So
were.
I was saying, yes, I was saying about the sugar industry. You were talking about the operating estates and the money that we have expended so far to bring it back to capacity. When we took over, those estates were working between 50 to 60% capacity. As I'm speaking now, very many critical parts we have changed, and we'll continue to do that to bring it to maximum capacity. As I said, that we are seeing now improvement in terms of sugar production. We have seen for the second week in the crop, both two estates have surpassed their target, weekly target, and high flood just missed it around just about 5%. So this will be the new trend, that we want the estate to be more efficient, we want management to be more accountable, and the workers, as long as the workers see that management is accountable and more efficient, then they will have more morale to go to the estate to work. Also, the closed estate, as I'm speaking, that the naysayers and doomsayers were saying that we were making political, we were fooling people. I want to say that as I'm speaking with you here, work are advancing rapidly at these estates to reopen these closed sugar estates. As I mentioned earlier, that almost close to about 1,000 workers who were fired, who were dismissed under the AP and UAFC, they are back on the job. And in the next few months, more and more workers will be rehired to be at these estates. We are doing it in a planned approach. All three estates will not be open simultaneously, but for example, Gaisuko, they are working to reopen one after the other. Rosal, I suspect Rosal will be the first estate to be reopened. But Skeldon and Enmore will also be reopened, because we are hearing the talks around the country that people are saying that we will not reopen these estates. Works are progressive rapidly in these estates, and as I'm speaking here, many works are done in the cultivation area to bring back the cultivation. You know, cane is a thing; it's not an overnight thing. You have to plant the nursery. You have to get the cane plant to go into the wider field. You have to do tillage. You have to do a lot of plowing and set the field in a proper way so that you can prepare the field to plant the cane. And cane is not a thing that you plant it today and get the reap it tomorrow. It's a period of time. So whilst all these things are being prepared, works are progressing both in the field and on the factory areas, so that we can bring it back to what we wanted, so that we can employ the workers. Also, what we have been doing, Gaisuko has been doing, they are looking at the packaging plant, because Gaisuko cannot survive with only producing raw brown sugar. we have to have value-added production. And what we are doing so far, we are now producing more packaged sugar, right? Rather than producing bulk sugar. You see, the packaged sugar is more value in the Caribbean than bulk sugar. So both at Blairmont and Enmore at the packaging plant, we'll extend it and we'll have it, the capacity improved so that we can produce more value-added packaged sugar. So in the long term, my goal as Minister of Agriculture is to first of all break even. As I am speaking here, our cost of production is more than what we are selling. And that's a fact. That is nothing a secret. That I answered the question in Parliament that Ramjitan would have asked me. I stated that yes, Gaisuco is producing sugar at a higher cost than what we are selling, but at the same time, we have to look at the social benefit of Gaisuco. Because even in the great United States of America, when certain sector is under threat, the government try to bail it out or give them financial help. When we had the financial crisis, President Obama would have given GM Motor a lot of money. And every single year in the agriculture sector in the United States, we are seeing government subsidies being given to these agencies and these sectors. Because why? These sectors are important, are very important for the livelihood of people within the country. Likewise, Gaisuco. Gaisuco was employing close to about 16,000 workers. When you multiply that by 4 average family, then you have those directly dependent Gaisuco. Then you have the direct, indirect dependency, the shopkeepers, the market vendors, the village economy. So, and then the services Gaisuco normally provides within the community, DNI service, primary health care, recreational facilities. So those things were completely slow death when Gaisuco and these estates closed. For example, Rosal Kanji. There is no other industry in Rosal Kanji to take off the labor that were made redundant in Rosal Kanji. So the entire community died slow death. Families were broken up. People had to leave their hometown and go to different parts of the country. Some even migrated overseas and leave their families in Kanji and other parts in the area because the economic situation was so worse that people hardly could have afford to pay for their utility services, things like telephone service, water, electricity. Those things were considered luxury because people didn't have money to pay for it. Now you see life once again coming back slowly and slowly in those communities, although these estates have not really reopened. But you're seeing the hope start to restore in these communities. So $2 billion this year we'll continue to expend in Gaisuco, and we'll try as much as possible to make Gaisuco more efficient, bring down the cost of production, and at the same time workers, we'll ensure that we build the morale of workers and we help to ensure that workers get their due benefit so that we can move the cooperation both from a government perspective, from Gaisuco's perspective, and from the workers' perspective to make it more efficient.
Minister, just before you move on, I'm trying to fathom $30 billion, nothing done. The estate was going down. And you have been able to bring back the estate with $9 billion. Was there a misuse of funds? What exactly was the problem? This is glaring. This is
well. So far, Gaisuco will have to investigate. I asked the board. We have an efficient board. We have an efficient board, and that board will. We have a very efficient board, and that board will have to take the and ensure that they play their role and play their part. Now, just moving on quickly. We'll have another $12 billion for DNI service. Over the last few months last year, we have did a lot of work in the DNI section of our
This
ministry.
is drainage and irrigation, specifically related to agriculture. Mostly agriculture.
So last year alone, we would have set up, and as I'm speaking here now, we are looking, the pumps are being tested. We had 12 pumps that we have bought last year, and we are setting those pumps across the country, the various parts of the country. Now, what we want to do, we want to ensure that we have proper drainage facility. Over the last few years, we have seen excessive and high intensity of rainfall. Because of that, many areas experienced flooding. Because of flooding, many cash crop farmers were unable to continue their crops. We have seen last year the spike in the price of basic commodities in the agriculture sector. We want to avoid those things, and we want efficient drainage. So what we are doing, we are still rehabilitating these channels and outfalls, but when the tide is up, we'll boost those drainage by pumps. So we have pump placed at various parts of the country where we'll have almost 24 hours drainage with the outfall and the pump, so that we will not have water too long on the land. Water will not destroy people's crops and livelihood and things like that. So I want to inform farmers, I want to inform residents around the country that this year a number of works in the drainage.
Because these drainage is for the backlands, but they come through the frontlands and actually drain communities.
Communities, because I went to lowland, and lowland, you know, for area, lowland is an area that normally that when rain fall, the entire areas will be flooded. I went there, I had an excavator and distilled all the internal drains there in lowland area. And the resident can bear testimony whenever they call me, and they were very, very grateful for us to go, because people never visit these communities. And right across the country we go, not only lowland, but from region 1 to region 10, every single part. In region 10, I visited a number of communities, and people said that they were neglected, they never saw the Minister of Agriculture before in those areas. So we are working, and we have visited hundreds of communities across this country. We have we talked to thousands of farmers, and that is the way we have crafted our budget, because based on the interaction with farmers, that is how we have crafted our budget to ensure that we deal with these issues across the country. So DNI, we have the largest part of the budget will be spent on DNI, because we have to ensure that we prepare the areas, we prepare the infrastructure so that farmers can have good infrastructure to go and plant. So $12 billion, we'll see new pumps at Montrose, Blackbush Folder, Region 2, in Linden. We are doing now in Linden, for the first time in the history of this country, we are building a conservancy in Linden. You know, when people talk about Region 10, they relate that to mining. We have to change that mentality, because mining is no longer the #1 activity in Linden. People are willing to farm, but they need infrastructure. The previous government, they said that they have raised these issues, they never listened to them. Now we'll be expending $176 million to build a conservancy in West Watuka, so that farmers there can have water, like what we have in the East Demerara Water Conservancy. So we are preparing the infrastructure so that farmers can have these infrastructure so that they can go and plant. So very shortly, you will see Guyana take back its rightful place, because I mentioned it in the budget when I spoke, that Guyana has to be back once again the breadbasket of the Caribbean. If we want to do that, then we have to ensure that we create the necessary groundwork, we lay the necessary infrastructure, so that farmers can get these infrastructure in place. So that we will be doing. Also in the rice sector, what we have noticed last year with the kind of work we have done, we have seen an increase in the yield per acre for rice, and we have seen an increase in production last year. So this year, this trend will continue. We will be expending $1.3 billion to do infrastructural work across the country. We will be building new drying floors in all the region, all the rice growing regions in this country. We will be building a soil lab at GRDB, so that we can test the soil and give farmers better advice how they should plant. We will be doing more research in terms of rice, different rice variety. Last year we would have launched a new variety, a variety called GRDB 16. That variety will move the yields per acre from 40 bags maximum to 60 bags per acre now. So farmers will, and that the yield is in demand. Farmers now will have better option and better extension services from the GRDB. The GRDB will play a more important role. Also, what we'll be doing, we'll be procuring instruments, these equipment like the long boom sprayer to tackle the paddy bug issue. Paddy bug is a serious problem across the country with farmers. So we are working with the farmers over time, and we are developing not only a short-term approach to this problem, but we want to develop a long-term approach so that we can tackle and eliminate paddy bugs in the near future. NARI. NARI, we will see a $1.2 billion being expended at NARI. What NARI will be doing, NARI, as I said, over the last 6 months, people now are seeing extension officers from NARI. We have restarted the Cushy Ants program. We will be buying fogging machine for the interior location and other parts of the country where Cushy ants are affecting farmers. And also what we'll be doing, we will help farmers to get planting material. We will help farmers to get pesticides and chemical, and we will help them to grow more better crops. We will give them better extension services. And what we will be doing this year alone, we will be procuring material for another 100 shade houses across the country. With climate change on, we can't continue to plant in the same old way. We have to plant in a better, smarter way. So that way we have climate smart agriculture now. And we are making this thing in a very affordable way. Because when people hear about greenhouse and hear about shade houses and things like that, they are related to a large sum of money they have to spend. If a farmer has between $25,000 to $30,000, they can get a proper shade house. We will give them the material, we will set up the shade house, and we will help them to ensure that they how they should go about doing the planting in the shade house. Because when
this is through NARI?
Through NARI, through the government program. So $1.2 billion will be expended there. And you know, with the prominence now that coconut is taking in the world, coconut is becoming the third most important crop in our country. And we are preparing our country for that, because last year we would have built 2 new nurseries, one in Charity and one in Kairuni on the East Bank, the highway. So this year we will build another 4 new nurseries so that farmers would not have to come to Manripo or Hope Coconut Estate to get these coconut plants, our coconut seedling. We will be building it in Berbice, in Region 3, in the islands, in the Essequibo Islands, in Region 2, and different parts of the country. So Hope Estate, $70 million we'll be doing to construct 4 new nurseries, one at number 63, Wakenan, Leg 1, Canals Polder, and other parts of the country. And we'll continue to do the agriculture infrastructure in the hinterland, because we don't want any region to left out. We are doing a lot of things in the coastal area, but places like Region 1, 7, 8, and 9, we have to also help farmers in those areas. So what we'll be doing this year, we'll be expending close to $832 million to buy equipments for these communities, you know, farming tools, farming equipments, and things like that. So we'll start that program, and that program will roll out shortly. And we'll also build agro-processing facilities across the country, because farmers over the years have been planting and selling their produce, just like reap it at the farm, to the market. We want to ensure farmers have developed their produce into a more value added, pack their produce, export it in the Caribbean. You understand? Because as I'm speaking now, we are looking at all the barriers that are affecting our farmers from selling in the Caribbean markets. And we have to, if we are trying to take down those barriers, then we have to have the kind of commodities to supply these Caribbean markets. That is why we have to have proper facilities. And what we'll be doing, I was very disappointed when I went to Puerto Rico, because in the last PPP civic government before 2015, we would have built a brand new agro-processing facility in Puerto Rico. But the last government allowed it to run down, all the activity was ceased, and there was nothing going on there. What I'll be doing this year, through our ministry's budget, we'll be retrofit it back, we'll rehabilitate it, and we'll have a public-private partnership there. That will be one of the first projects that we will start. But also what we'll be doing in Linden, Caracara, we'll be doing an agro-processing facility there. We'll be doing 2 in Region 9, Arnaputa and St. Ignatius, 2 agro-processing facilities there. And I want to do one at the industrial site at Letem, so that we can cater for the interior location, because you know there are a lot of produce coming out or can come out from Region 9. Also at Blackbush Polder in Les Beholden, we'll be doing another facility there for the farmers in Blackbush Folder and that catchment area. So we are pushing these agro-processing facilities so that we can have farmers can have value for their money and their produce can become more value added rather than to just use marketing in subsistence way from the farm to the market. So we will be doing that, and also the Sophia packaging agro-processing area there. We will be building shed, and we will be doing a proper building there so that we can get packaging be done there also. But the most important thing is that we'll be procuring this year 2 new freezing trucks. These trucks will be moving across the country where we are trying to facilitate farmers to get market for their produce. So these trucks at a minimal cost will collect farmers' produce to the various areas that they have to be sold or sell, and then they will sell those produce there. But this is the kind of service that we intend to develop from the Ministry of Agriculture. And then the other various sectors, I think another day we have to sit down and go through it very thoroughly and detailed. We are looking at the livestock sector too, because there is a lot of potential there in our livestock sector to develop it. We'll be building in more these black giant birds. We'll be bringing better breeding animal into the country. As a matter of fact, last month, 4 or 5 breeding farmers received breeding animal from us. We sent to the interior location a number of black giant birds. We are giving these extension services. We are doing these insemination services. So we are developing our livestock. As a result of that, we will be building 2 new abattoirs. One at Anvoa and a new pig pork processing plant at Garden of Eden. This plant will be capable of making things like sausages and so. You understand? So that we can make our own sausage in the country. So these are the things we are working to do. And also, one of the most important investments we'll be making this year is to develop non-traditional crops. When I mean non-traditional crops, crops that normally we don't put a lot of effort on, but crops that can bring wealth to our country and save us a lot of foreign exchange. So this year we'll be ensuring that we spend $500 million to develop the intermediate savanna. Why we are doing that? Because we want to go ensure that we encourage people to invest in the corn and soya industry. Corn and soya has the potential because every year, for corn alone, we are importing almost $25 million US.
Mostly for chicken feed.
For the poultry industry. So the president has instructed, and he has already so committed, that all the proteins for the poultry industry should be produced right here in Guyana. So we are doing that, and we will be going out this year to do infrastructural work, and a number of investors have already indicated their willingness to go into these areas to do large-scale cultivation of these 2 crops. So, Critic, I think all in all, the agriculture sector is set to take off this year. There are a lot of benefits for the farmers. I want to encourage people who want to come into the agriculture sector. Rest assured, we will give you all the help. We can help you. We can help you to start your farm, and we will give you all the extension services, because the PPP civic government, we see agriculture as one of the most important sectors, because island gas, at time will come and island gas will come and finish, but agriculture is here to stay, and agriculture will create wealth, create jobs, but most importantly, create food security for our country and the Caribbean.
Minister, last but not least, you have said quite a bit about how the citizens' money will be spent. One of the things that have been plaguing Guyanese rice farmers is the fact that some unscrupulous millers continue to take the produce and not pay the rice farmers. In most cases, these are private matters. But can the ministry, or would the ministry be looking at any way to create an atmosphere that secures the rice farmer from the miller?
Yes, and I have been talking already. As a matter of fact, I want to just mention this. You know, last year I mentioned to you that Panama would have owed the Guyanese rice miller close to about $1.9 billion. So that money has increased now about $2 billion. And what we have done, this week I should have a meeting with the people in Panama to resolve that issue. I have asked all the rice millers that in future, when this matter is settled, they should not owe the rice farmers, because we are having new markets now for our produce. For example, through the partial scope agreement with Guyana and Brazil, we have increased our quota from 10,000 tons to 34,000 tons now, rice. We have new market in Hungary. We have new market in Latvia for the former Soviet Republic. So we are having more market, and people will be paying the rice miller promptly, and as a result of that, we'll be ensuring that they pay the farmers. And what I've been doing also in all these major areas that farmers are selling their rice to, we'll be having the graders there, representative from the farmers, so that they can look at the grading facility and the grading aspect of the farmers' produce, so that the farmers will not have receive the short end of the run. So we are putting all these mechanisms in place, and I think agriculture is now agriculture. We have great opportunities for agriculture, and agriculture will move forward rapidly under our government.
Mr. Minister, thank you for your time. I know you have the people's heart work at heart, and I hope that we can continue to have these conversations, and you be the transparent person that will help the farmers to understand where we're going, and Guyana in tune could develop. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much.